And we've always had a series of conserver heritage here in the show. We've had different animals. You must have learned more on reptiles and other animals and usual rights. And we've been going to many areas as far as conservation is concerned. Today in the studio, we'll be discussing policies. And I'm pretty sure if you wanted to be part of conservation in Uganda, you would really want to know one or two policies or more. And then before you realize you'll be part of it. My name is Glen, and in the studio, I'm hosting two gentlemen. From far left is Chamonges Sabila, Deputy Director Legal. So I think great seeing you on UBC.
Good evening, viewers.
And happy to see you here.
Happy to see you here.
On near is Charles Tumwesije, Deputy Director Conservation. Good to see you here. And
good evening, viewers, and welcome to the show.
We've always wanted to know policies. We've always waited to host you in the show. I know a couple of Mondays you've been jumping. We've always discussed policies off air, and everyone wanted to join. There's a time we discussed butterflies and other usual rights, and we're like, what does it take to be part of UA? It so happens that we've always had no chance, but good to go. We have a chance to discuss these policies in the studio. And I think without wasting more time, we have to straight hit the road. Who is UA? And who mandates UA to run Uganda Life Authority?
Thank you, Lady. UA is a government parastatal. It's one of the corporations established by law for the management of wildlife. It is a mandate, basically mandates from Uganda Wildlife Act, which gives us the responsibility of managing wildlife, both in the protected areas and outside the protected areas. Basically, UA is an institution established by an Act of Parliament.
Act of Parliament?
Yeah.
In 2000?
That was 1996. And the law currently is cited as the Uganda Wildlife Act, Cap 200 of the laws of Uganda of 2000.
Protected areas, does this only look at protected areas?
Now, UA, as he has mentioned, looks at protected areas, the wildlife protected areas, but it also looks at wildlife both within and outside the protected areas. And this wildlife that we are talking about is actually everybody's responsibility. UA is just managing the wildlife on behalf of the people. UA is a trustee. The government has appointed UA as a trustee for this wildlife, be it on in protected areas or outside the protected areas.
So, well, that's clearly a put on because this looks like the public or people own wildlife. Then that means UA having roles to play as far as conserving and having the policies put in place. I may want to know more about this.
Yeah, what's very important for our viewers to know is that wildlife in Uganda belongs to the people of Uganda, as per the constitution. And the law vests it to the government to manage it on behalf of the people. And UA happens to be that institution that government established to do this responsibility of managing wildlife. But the management is for the people. The wildlife is owned by the people. So the management and the entire framework of managing wildlife is for the benefit of the people of Uganda.
Does it mean if you found an animal in my compound, a wild animal, I'm possessing it, maybe it's in my area, what is UA supposed to tell me? Is it their animal? It's my animal?
It's basically your animal, but in order to manage that animal, you need guidance. You need to know, how do I manage this animal? You can actually get a license to manage that animal and benefit from it in various forms. Through tourism, you can actually breed that animal to multiply and have many, so that you can do cropping, you can do utilization. So yes, the issue is not you owning the animal, but what can you do with that animal so that you benefit from it and then you conserve it. That is the gist of the matter.
Then what does it need? If I find my way, does it mean that I just have to report to UA? Tell them,
No, the most important thing is to appreciate that wildlife is a common good for the enjoyment of all.
How do I appreciate?
Not at the discretion of others. I mean, so what's important is if you're going to have any rights to benefit from it, then you need the license, because the policies and the laws provide an extensive licensing regime where a person can be able to come to UA and get a license for the different user rights that are given in the policies and in the various laws. So it gives you mandate to actually manage and benefit if it is on your land as an individual. But as a public good, it's supposed to benefit everybody. But different people are given different rights depending on the regime that they choose to go for.
Now, this is bringing us to when you have a wild animal close to the community, and it so happens that those communities that are around the national parks, they have a common activity they do, which they inherited from different generations that has resulted to poaching. To them, they grew up seeing their great-grandfathers, their great-fathers, and when they are eating wild meat, but looks like UA will term it as poaching.
Currently, what happens now is that the policy provides for what is called sustainable utilization, and it emanates from the sustainable management of wildlife. So it is not that UA, there is total prohibition and that UA is protecting only. No. The question is regulation. You can access, you can benefit, but in a regulated manner. And different communities understand this, that you can actually have these wildlife resources, but in a regulated manner, such that sustainability is achieved. Because the component of accessing resources in the protected areas and even accessing the wildlife within your areas, there is an extensive way of how it's done. But then the key aspect is sustainable use and the regulated approach. You cannot just wake up and go into harvesting for yourself. That would be illegal.
But this is my land.
And Mr. Karamagi, just as you've rightly said, our great-grandfathers stayed with this wildlife, they lived with it,
Yes.
and we are still seeing it. So what the policies and laws are there to help us is, how can we make sure that this wildlife that you are looking at, that has been there, which your great-grandfathers used, is there for this generation, is there for the next generation? Because if, for example, you say, why can't I kill it? I mean, if you kill it, then what happens? Maybe in the future, there will be no wildlife. But with the laws and policies, you can actually kill that wildlife. But you'll find that the policies will guide you on if you want to kill that wildlife. Maybe, is it a female? You need to determine its sex. Is it a female? Is it a breeding Is it a breeding species? Is it an old male which has already stopped breeding and so doesn't contribute to the population of the wildlife? And so that's where the laws, the policies come in to guide how do you manage, how do you utilize this wildlife so that it is sustainable, it benefits the current generations, and it also benefits the future generations, because we want our great-grandchildren to come and see this wildlife just like we are enjoying it. They should also come and enjoy it. You never know in the future the medicine for AIDS or anything else might come from animals. So if we finish it, then what will happen? So that's why we need to conserve the wildlife.
I one time visited, is it the Karenga corridor?
Yes.
Where we see communities who benefit from wildlife having some few issues to discuss with OA. I think these are areas of Kabong, Abim, you have Agago. They seem to, there's one gentleman who raised that we have lived with these animals for years, but they seem to have had a very comfortable way of staying with the animals. But now it's a different story that OA is rising to say, no, don't do this. Have you made changes in the policies? And if yes, you've made changes, what if the animal is in my land? How do you handle that situation? Because it comes with the land and the animals. This is my land and the animals are in my area. Who told us we manage these are our animals, but they manage them, but they're in my land.
Mr. Karamagi, one thing that we need to appreciate first of all is that wildlife that we manage as per the mandate, the law and the policy, exists both in the protected areas and outside the protected areas. And the national parks are not in form of cages where they don't move. So the ecosystem of this wildlife is across the board, and the policy provides that you manage it with the communities, because it exists with the communities. As Charles has indicated to you, these animals have been existing with these communities time immemorial.
Yes.
And therefore, to manage them, you need the community participation. So there should be a way of how the communities are able to appreciate that, whereas there are challenges they are facing with the wildlife, they are able to live with them. Yeah? With the main objective of saying we must conserve them, we must carry them on to the next generation. As we meet the challenges that we face them, we have various mechanisms that Charles can
Let me just expound on the Karenga issue now that we have raised it.
Yes.
Now the law, the Wildlife Act, which is the main law, provides for the different categories of wildlife areas.
Yes.
Now, there are those wildlife areas that are categorized as national parks, where usually
No
in
go
the
zone.
national park, no, it's not a no-go. It is mainly it is mainly preservation, and people should see animals in their nature. There should basically be minimal manipulation of the environment to make sure that the animals maintain their natural ability. That's in a national park. Then there is another category, which is a wildlife reserve. A wildlife reserve is a lower category to
Okay,
the national park. It means that you can actually have some form of utilization depending on the numbers, depending on the situations. You can even allow some form of utilization in a wildlife reserve. Then we have those categories where wildlife is on private land, and we term them community wildlife areas.
Yes.
So Karenga is a community wildlife area. We recognize that this is actually community land. People have land, some may have titles,
Yes.
but there is also wildlife because it is a corridor. The animals, the elephants, move all the way from Kidepo, from South Sudan. They move through Kidepo, and they come into those reserves, the Matheniko, Bokora, and Pian Upe. That was their movement. And they pass through Karenga. So the Karenga is given that status to recognize the wildlife that is within, and then we call it a community wildlife area, and then come up with programs that will allow the communities to benefit from that wildlife. Some of the programs that we are coming up with, you've heard about conservancies.
Yes.
In Kenya, people have lots of animals on their land.
Yeah, and
there
actually,
are some people with big ranches.
and they have given
have
them out to the wildlife in Kenya.
Exactly. So we are looking at Karenga. Supposing people look at this wildlife in Karenga as another form of land use. Because you can do a conservancy, you can build a very modern lodge, you can even apply and get a license to utilize these animals.
If you look
And
at it
then
so closely,
it will be a
Mr.
new-
Charles,
yes,
if
please.
I can cut you short, I don't think someone in Karenga, Abim, Kabong, Gulu, or maybe Agago can interpret these policies and wake up in the morning and tell you know what, I'm going to have a hotel in here. Because between me and you, we know a hotel is not a tomorrow thing you're going to do. You've got to have a lot of investments to go down and start having a hotel.
Yes.
But if you look at their status, these are these are hunters, to be precise. I don't call them poachers because it's like they're going to be arrested the next day. But it's one of the activities they do. Now, by the time you tell them to invest in wildlife to benefit,
Actually, Karamagi, to cut you short on that,
Yep.
currently, under the land use policy, some of these areas have been identified as areas that can have wildlife as an alternative land use for the communities. As we speak, we are organizing communities within this corridor that we're talking about to enter into relationships with us, partnerships, and they've already organized. A number of them have been taken to Kenya to study on how the Kenyan system is working, so that they can be able to benefit from this land from an alternative perspective of having wildlife and enjoying many other benefits. This is happening. Associations have been registered, and as we speak, these communities actually are getting enlightened on the benefits of wildlife on their land as an alternative land use, such that they can be able to have livelihood, which is more meaningful. Because you are aware that as we speak today, wildlife and tourism and the sector is becoming the fastest sector of the economy.
Yeah, true.
So
true,
people
true.
can now,
that one I'll
join in
clearly
to be able to benefit from the wildlife.
You know, in Uganda we have, I don't want to say in Uganda, but we have a tendency of Mfunirawa. When you tell me the economy has improved, you know, it's wildlife and you know it's tourism, it's not until I travel to look at the good roads that have been built, when I look at, then I will appreciate. But at the end of it all, I may not benefit. Now I'm looking at someone who's near the park.
Yes.
The challenge they are having, and I know the cases you must have had, because I've been to one of the areas that have been affected by wildlife. I know you discussing policies, and it's a different story with what they are saying, because all they are running to are complaints. The garden is being destroyed by the elephant. The next day it's a wild thing.
I will tell you this. I think the biggest challenge that we have is what we have termed as Mfunirawa. Everybody wants to look at this and look at what is my benefit.
Yes.
But we are forgetting that this is a national resource. So we are looking at this. If you give it a national resource and you look at not only yourself, but you look at the society, you look at the ecosystem, so that when you are looking at the benefits, you first benefit the society, and then from the society, it trickles down to the individuals. Because if it is to an individual, the individual will go and poach and kill the animal and get meat. What about tomorrow? Then he needs more. So is that sustainable? But we are looking at the community. If you are looking at a community which has been mobilized and has formed an association, then you can actually do a project for that community. You can build for them a lodge. Then from the lodge, they can make money. They can build schools. They can even share that money. They can get money and go into heifers, into goats, and benefit. So we need to get out of that individualism.
It quite looks like it's good on paper. We're explaining it's very good on paper. Has it been applied anywhere near the park?
No, Karamagi,
whereby communities have benefited because they are around the national parks. Is it applicable, Charles?
The question is,
yes,
what type of benefit are we looking at?
Yes.
We should not just narrow down. The benefits when it comes to wildlife conservation are enormous. First of all, in the constitution, every Ugandan is entitled to a clean and healthy environment.
Yes.
Has a basic right. This wildlife plays a fundamental role in the ecosystem service provision. Those are some of the benefits that we begin with primarily. When you're looking at climate change, you're looking at environment and weather monitoring, you're looking at key components that the wildlife play. So we should not just look at it from the component of you hunt, you get a resource, you get some money and go. But then, in addition to the wider ecosystem service, which is enshrined in the constitution that this wildlife must be protected, and the various policies. Now we come into where do you get from as an individual? And that's where the new policy that we have right now, 2014 wildlife policy, is coming into looking at maximization of benefits. In addition to the ecosystem role that the wildlife is playing, how do people benefit tangibly?
Before we go to the ecosystem, I
wanted to tell you where you have asked the question, where has it worked?
Yes,
in Uganda,
yes.
And actually it has worked.
Yes.
I will tell you, in before 2000 or 2002, we had a big problem around Lake Mbro National Park. This is a small park. It was reduced in size because of the pressures from the population, but this is the place where we have a lot of wildlife on people's land, on people's ranches, and some of that wildlife has never lived in the park. It has lived in those areas, even in Wachitura, in the president's home. There is wildlife which doesn't even know that Lake Mbro exists. Now, we used to have a very big problem because people were looking at it as a problem. They are still looking at it anyway as a problem. But we've done interventions in that area where people can utilize that wildlife through professional hunting. And then people who used to look at wildlife as a problem are looking at it as a source of revenue, a source of income. And you know what has happened? The population of wildlife in Lake Mbro is going up, and even in those areas, because there is no more poaching. You will not tell a landlord in those ranches around Lake Mbro that you will not allow you to poach, because you don't give him any benefit when you poach. You kill and take the meat, yet through other interventions like sport hunting, the man gets a lot of money, much more than he gets from cows.
Has sport hunting gone as far as Mburo as
in the ranches around Lake Mbro, not in the park? We don't do sport hunting in the park. But it is one of the management interventions to manage wildlife in the ranches. And you see how sport hunting works, is that the sport hunter is interested in the trophy. The good trophy comes from the biggest male, which is no longer contributing to the gene pool in the ecosystem. The museum is supposed to be retiring, so that's what he takes.
Yeah, before we discuss
the ecosystem.
Before we discuss the ecosystem, because the ecosystem I will need an understanding of it more. It's more science. But a week or two ago, a member, I think, managed to rescue a crocodile around River Kafu. Very well identified by the communities. because it had 3, do you call them legs as well, of a crocodile?
Mhm.
I think it lost one when it was young, but I managed to see the crocodile, and the community were identifying that is the community that has been destroying our livestock. That's the only way they can discuss on a crocodile. It was very well rescued and maybe taken to actions, I presume. But how do you convince someone who's been having maybe 2 or 3 seasons without harvesting well, because these are the same questions like we managed to face in Karenga, and some people around Kafu, they're facing this, they're asking the same questions. How have you addressed this?
Karamagi, to come on that, first of all, the current policy and law provides for benefit sharing in terms of actual revenue with the communities. The drafters of the law, way back in the 1996, knew that to conserve wildlife, you need the community. And they will incur a cost because the wildlife lives with them. So they put a component of 20% revenue sharing as a first benefit to these people who suffer from wildlife attacks. And that is there. It goes through the local governments for the benefit of the frontline communities that live with what? With the wildlife. So every revenue collected by UA, 20% of it from a protected area goes back to the community. For that purpose of ensuring that the challenges incurred by these communities are atoned. Now, there have been challenges in that, of course, because it goes through the local government.
The local government, yes.
And as UA, we don't have a mandate to go and follow into that, because the framework that exists is that give this money to the local government, but then we work together to ensure that some of the projects go in. But now, the current law that is being, the bill that has been gazetted, that's being developed, government is going further to look into how this person who has been injured directly, how can he be?
Yes.
In a way.
Is there a way?
You may not compensate fully, but some level of compassion to ensure that they still coexist with this wildlife. We are looking at a situation where the people should look at this wildlife not as a problem, but as a benefit. So that even when it causes some damage to you, your property, will be able to be given some compassionate kind of compensation. That's where we are going into. But currently we have a benefit in terms of sharing revenues.
One of the policies I came across was the transparency, accountability, and fair competition. Where does it apply?
Now, when we talk about transparency, accountability, and fair competition, you see, this is one of the principles of the wildlife policy 2014. And what we are looking at is that this wildlife, these protected areas, have got other economic benefits. People have built lodges through concessions. There are these concessions I've been talking about, the enterprises, the wildlife enterprises. So when you are giving out this, how do you give them? Do you come as Karamagi and say, by the way, can you give me a lodge in the park? So when we are talking about transparency, accountability, and fair competition, as provided in the wildlife policy, we are looking at issues of management, issues of licensing, issues of procurement, issues of concessioning, user rights, quota setting, and management. Are you transparent? Are you doing things that are done based on facts, based on science, so that people can appreciate what you are doing? So that is what the policy tries to address, that when you are dealing with wildlife management, you promote transparency, you promote accountability, you promote fair competition.
Yeah, before we go for a simple breather, besides animals attacking the communities and who has come to rescue, and like you said, by the time the policies were put in place, they knew communities must play a part, and they're supposed to be living with this wildlife, not to see them off.
Yes.
I read a new vision today that had a different story. It looks like poachers, community members.
Actually, the story was saying rangers execute 7.
Seven. Now, rangers execute 7.
It's a misleading story.
It's a leading story.
Misleading.
I don't know if it's misleading, but in journalism, print media, they say it's the headline. It's a leading story. And trust me, it is more of a story I really want to clear out. I don't know if it's true or not true. 7 cleared by rangers. What does it mean?
Karamagi, first of all, it's unfortunate that a leading media house on the side of government comes up with such a story.
New Vision? Was it New Vision?
It was New Vision.
Yes.
Without facts. Because if you look at the headline and you go into the story, you get disappointed that the story is a concoction of facts from different people here and there.
But you see,
As a country, we have a system. When a person, I mean, first of all, as an institution, we don't condone criminality. And our officers are law-abiding. The institution is a law-abiding institution. Where there are issues of enforcement or where there are issues of illegality, we have a system. The police, cases are reported to police. But if you look at that story on New Vision, you don't see any reference to a police case. You don't see any reference to the allegations. We know and we are aware that there are poachers that are
were cleared by rangers.
Not cleared by rangers. We arrest poachers. The Wildlife Act is a law that we enforce. If you commit an offense, our responsibility is to arrest you, take you to police, we take you to court for prosecution. We don't clear nobody. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is that whatever we do, we follow the law. That story is based on facts that are baseless, honestly, to tell you. If there are all these claims, we are aware that there are people who are trying to derail our efforts. These are wildlife traffickers who are trying to derail the efforts of UA and also to demoralize our staff by coming up with all these kinds of stories.
Before we go for that simple break, were they armed? Or these maybe, I'm thinking these were community members who wanted to visit the park, maybe.
I want to approach it in a different way, and that's why I really need the media to always play a balanced, when they are reporting, they need a balance, they need to balance. One, you know that UWA is managing these estates in trust for the people.
Yes.
And we actually have a law enforcement wing. The biggest component of our staff is law enforcement. Now, we also are in a crisis right now of wildlife trafficking. People are going in to hunt and kill elephants. You don't kill an elephant with a spear. You don't kill an elephant with a panga. You kill an elephant with a gun. So we are having people moving in with guns. That particular story, actually, I expected the journalists who covered the story to report and to actually, they mentioned something about Brisa. That particular incident was reported at Brisa. People went with guns, 2 guns, to hunt, and they met rangers. They fought rangers. They injured our rangers. That one is not reported. So in the process, we recovered a gun from them. Of course, to recover a gun from somebody, you must put him out. So it was war in the bush, and that matter was reported to Brisa. Brisa came and took the bodies. They made a post-mortem. They are the ones who called the relatives. There is an SD reference for that case, and UA is going to be putting out a press release to clear the air about that. But you see, when you read the story, that does not come out. It is not, you don't know that the rangers were injured as well, because it was an exchange, and the gun was recovered.
In a press conference, shall we have those rangers who are injured in the press conference?
We can have them, but they are in match.
And maybe to clarify on that,
we are going for a break.
We're going for a break. 2 people, not the 7 that they're talking about.
Exactly.
Where there was an incursion, an exchange of fire.
There are only 2.
Those are 2.
There
But
are
the
7.
story here, that's what I'm telling you, this story is having different facts that don't exist.
Thank you very much for clearing that. Let us go for this quick one. When we return, we have a couple of messages we're going to go through. We may not have time to go through the science of animals and the human beings. What does it help? But let us have this breather. Then return, we'll be having your answers as far as the questions are concerned. Keep it UBC. Conserve Our Heritage, coming your way every Monday, 9 p.m. to 10. My name is Glen, and in the studio I have Deputy Director Conservation, Charles Tumwesje, and Deputy Legal, Chemonges, and we are discussing more on policies. We have a couple of SMSs, but before we go into the SMSs, something crosses my mind. I remember during campaigns, when did we vote? 2016? 2016 February. It's running very fast. One of the opposition leaders, Besije, told guys around Mbale, that's the Elgon, which connects to Kapchorwa, Bukwo, that if I got office, I'm going to bring back your land, as they were saying. How true is that, Mr. Chemonges?
It's a tricky one. Karamagi, what
yes.
First of all, we need to appreciate that.
Is it applicable anyway?
The land that is termed as protected areas, gazetted, is gazetted. And the gazettement was a process that took, rigorous procedure. All these protected areas have a role to play for the benefit, as I told you, is a common good. So the component of politicians telling people that we want to give you back their land, the gazettement of any portion of the national park is through another process, and it's Parliament.
It's Parliament, yes.
Yeah, that gazettes it. And so it's Parliament that degazettes. And it's not true that politicians can wake up and say, we are giving you this land. Most especially when you're talking about Mount Elgon ecosystem. It's a very sensitive ecosystem where we need everybody, including the communities, to actually protect it, because it's a water catchment for the entire Bugisu Bay and the whole country. So you expect politicians to be guiding our people that this land is for our own good as a community, not for an individual. Okay. So that's a key component, and our politicians should be helping us to come on board, because they have a role to educate our people in a positive way, not in a negative way.
It's not applicable anywhere to get the land back to them.
And Mr. Karamagi, you recall when people attempted to enter that forest in Mount Elgon and cut the trees, encroached on it, you know what happens with landslides. Landslides buried people. So when we are telling people let's conserve this ecosystem, it is not only for the benefit of OA, it is not it, but it is also for their own good, because that mountain is holding life of the entire land around Mount Elgon, around Lake Choga. They are all dependent on that mountain. If it is not there.
Those are some of the committee members who actually addressed by, but we have a couple of SMSs. We're going to have a few of them. Yeah. This one is called Aitaru. Aitaru is saying, yes, wild belongs to the people of Uganda. What happens if the wildlife treat to humans like destroying crops in farms? In case a point in Amoru, where the local leaders have promised to poison the wildlife because OA is not helping them protect their lives and crops.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very good question, which we meet
from
all
Aitaru,
over.
from Amoru.
I think the issue of human-wildlife conflicts, mitigation, and what can be done to coexist with wildlife needs a special show on its own. And what we are saying is that if our forefathers lived with this wildlife, we can also live with this wildlife. There are means and interventions with which we have worked with the communities. We've dug trenches which stop the animals from crossing. We've encouraged people to do beekeeping. When you keep bees along the boundary, because the biggest problem in Amuru, in Noya, is elephants. When you keep bees, these bees are a menace to elephants. But you also use bees to get honey and make and improve your livelihood. So we have a number of interventions which we need a new show to talk about, how people can
now, Mr. Chemonges, I'm sorry to cut you short because of time.
Strategies, yes.
We don't want to be much into news. The floor manager has made it clear. News at 10 has to go on. If wildlife animal belongs to the people, why are Ugandans charged expensively when visiting national parks, reserves, and zoos? But you're telling me, or you're telling them, this belongs to you.
Okay, it's if you look at our tariff, because we have a tariff, there are fees payable by foreigners, foreign residents, and nationals. There is a big difference between the fees. I cannot specify the amount right now,
it's
but for
10,000.
10,000 for Ugandan. Really, if you say you're going into a national park, you're going to impact on the ecosystem, and 10,000 is a lot, then we don't want to promote our country.
You're also contributing to the community livelihood because there is 20% revenue sharing.
That comes back to the community on the 10,000 that we're talking about. So it's not really expensive. Our people only need to get interest to come into these protected areas.
Okay, Kizito
and enjoy the
Nikitintale
ecosystem.
is saying, how does UA manage poachers in national parks? This is Kizito Nikitintale.
Earlier on, I indicated that
You shoot them?
no,
You arrest?
law enforcement shooting. No one has the right
To shoot.
to take the life of another
Okay.
without the judicial processes. Our responsibility is to apprehend a criminal or a suspected criminal and is taken to police for investigations and prosecution in court. Yeah, so that's basically how we do it.
Okay, someone says ecosystem can be human related in the sense that we have human beings producing wild-related animals. What's UA's take on that? Can that be sourced from communities, organize it as a way of promoting tourism, which shall benefit the source community? This is the last one. The reason is being, we have seen people saying, Bamzara no Musota. You've heard that story?
Yes.
Where said is a twin
Yes.
brother to a certain python. Is it because of staying near the parks? Is that the reason why they're having this?
I think we need some psychologists and medical experts to tell us
Explain the mysteries
how
about
that happens, because in species conservation, we know that for species to interbreed and reproduce, they must belong to the same species. They must be able to
Genius
breed,
species.
and so I find it odd that a human being produces a snake. It is quite odd that, but these are the stories we have seen, we have heard. We may not know how true they are, but it is, science doesn't really prove that.
Okay, Wadanya says, why has UA not allowed PRI at zoos to be established to promote tourism and income generation for Ugandans who have large chunks of land? For example, want to have a farm of buffaloes.
Actually, it is allowed. The law, the Wildlife Act, provides for categories.
Wildlife farming.
Wildlife farming, wildlife ranching. I would encourage you. Is it Wadanya? Is he Wadanya?
Yes,
to,
Wa-
to,
Wadanya.
Come with his
to
proposal.
come to Uganda Wildlife Authority, and we discuss and we'll help him to get a license to be able to do a farm of buffaloes or
That's
any other
might
wildlife.
welcome.
Well,
That's-
there's a question. I think we shall have it right on Facebook, and the tweet handle will be out very soon. I'm pretty sure on that. But someone wanted to know more about ecotourism and ecosystem. You know, how is that related? And he wanted to know much about it. Has been Conserve Our Heritage. My name is Glen, and in studio we had Charles Tumwesje and Sebila Chemonges, Director, Legal and Deputy Director, Conservation. Until next Monday, we shall continue with the ecosystem and maybe the eco-tourism. We shall handle it here in the studio with you. It's Conserve Heritage every Monday, 9 p.m. News is up next. Keep it UBC.
Yeah, good night. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.